to one of my keys to the victory, right? For the Carolina Panthers, pass rush. We have to get a pass rush. We're playing against a team that, the Saints can be good this year, but their weak spot is the offensive line, especially on that right side. If we can figure out a way to get Trevor Penning on his heels, because, they drafted this guy and they thought that he would be, the saving grace for the offensive line, and he hasn't been. And then they drafted this past, draft. I can't even pronounce his name. Fuaga. Yeah. So this is his first year, rookie. He'll be playing left tackle, and so obviously everyone knows that the way you win games is to protect the quarterback, so that way he can exploit a defense and coverage. If we can figure out how to get in Carr's face throughout the game, make it hard, make him uncomfortable, we'll give ourselves a shot. Because Trevor Penning, terrible. His preseason was terrible. You look at the PFF and just the grades that they're giving this guy. Like in preseason, you should be able to really, make a statement, make a argument of why you were drafted, first pick, some years ago. Given the snaps, it just doesn't really sit well in the sense that the Saints have really what it takes. And I think we kind of discussed this last week, as far as who our favorites are, to win the South. I think they have all the boxes checked outside of the offensive line. I think the offensive coordinator right now is coming into, his first year, right? Or no, was it last year his first year? No, this year is his first year. And then you have a bad offensive line. Everywhere else, you're good. And I think that's the reason why we give them that edge, because they are pretty solid in all the other positions. But in order for you to really make a statement in this league, you got to have a quarterback that can throw, and you got to be able to have an offensive line that can protect him. And so
I would also mention, Trevin Wallace is a guy that you don't think of in terms of bringing pressure, but you can simulate pressure from very different ways.
Yeah. It doesn't have to just be a 4-man rush. We would love for it to be a 4-man rush, right? So that way we have coverage back there. But if we dress these things up, you have guys coming off the slot, coming off the edge, different 4-man. You can have different 4-man pressures, right?
That's true.
And still have coverage. Now that goes with, you have to figure out what personnel you're going to have in there for that. But, one thing we are going to do is stop the run. I
do believe that. Yeah.
We definitely upgraded, in that department, from last year was a struggle for us. And the additions of Ashawn Robinson, that's huge. I think that's going to alleviate any doubt for, how, Shy Tuttle is going to play. Right. Because I feel like when you have other dogs around you, it just alleviates the pressure to perform, right? I can trust him to be able to make that play. I don't have to go over there and do too much.
Yeah, you play
stay in my lane, figure my gaps out, and whatever stunts that coach dials up, I'll be prepared for it. But I think the additions there solidify the fact that we'll be able to stop the running. You said, with DJ, I'm playing the edge. He's more of a run stopper. I think that's perfect for him, and what he's good at. So
I'm real curious. You guys mentioned the rookie Trevin Wallace, and then maybe using him in certain packages or whatnot. I'm really interested in him. They had him mic'd up on Camp Confidential. I like this draft class. I like their personality. I like how they really feel like they're kind of the get after it type. They seem very confident in their abilities. and they seem like they know why they're here. Like the whole thing with Dan Morgan saying to us, I want dogs, I want guys to represent this, and they're a certain way. It feels like the ones he selected understand that. It's not something they have to be taught. It's just how they normally play or normally go about life. And that's the kind of thing you need to kind of start the building blocks to kind of flush out what's been here the past couple of years, different regimes, different ideas, different mentalities, and bring in like a unifying thing. And I was watching Camp Confidential. The second episode came out in the middle of the afternoon, like Monday, and I watched it. And it was a Dave Canales episode to me. It was like the first one felt like it was a Dan Morgan type episode where you kind of seeing behind the scenes how he was getting to these players and stuff. This one was more about like Dave Canales and how he's wired and how the players are gravitating to him and everything else. And I liked the scene. I was going to go get it, but the scene where I guess it's routine for him where he'll go up into the box or whatever and just kind of write out the first drive. Yeah. And just kind of envision it in his head. Cause I'm wired the same way. Like I'm a visual type person. I have to see it and kind of I have to either get my hands on it or like see it or to understand it more, better. And it feels like he's the same way where he wants to feel the grass. He wants to feel the wind blowing while it's going on. He wants to envision this scenario or that scenario. And it's just refreshing. It's so refreshing just to see somebody that's so in love with their craft, be involved with this team. So I think that's made it where I'm super excited about this year. The past 3 or 4 years have made me want to temper that excitement, and I hate that feeling. And I don't know if Panther fans are going through that right now, where you're like, this feels like the way we should have felt last year, but it feels like they actually did it right in terms of the recipe. Why are we always talking about food on the show? But whatever
hungry.
We left out the Crisco or whatever last year, and the whole thing just tasted like horrible. But this year we remembered the Crisco, and it put everything together. Like it bonded everything.
Frying chicken and pork chops. I hear you.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Like so it's like now it's like, let's see what we got. Let's put it on the table, see if it tastes good. So
thing that I noticed about Dave, just when I've been at practice and just seeing some of these behind the scenes things, is he's very detail oriented. We've heard about this all the way going back to last year when he was with Tampa Bay, the hiring process. And I don't think a lot of people really understand what being detail oriented means. Like, yes, you can coach certain teaching points and really hone it in, but you also have to explain to some of these guys why you're doing certain things. Like the previous coaching staffs, you might be teaching something, but you're not explaining the why behind it. Dave does that. And I think that's what really helps these players not only understand what they're doing, but it gives them more of an incentive to really kind of go after that, or maybe even do stuff on the side or after practice and work on those certain things, because they know that, hey, if I'm doing this, it's going to help me do this, this, and this. Whereas if you're just going through a drill just to do the drill, you can kind of get a little lethargic doing some of those things. So I think that explaining for Dave is what really kind of helps resonate the message, with some of those players.
What you're talking about is intentional reps, right?
Yeah.
When you're having intentional reps, you're basically putting yourself in situations that will happen. You don't know when they'll happen, but if you understand the formalities of why you're setting the edge, right? If you understand why you're doing that and you're getting the reps in practice of experiencing setting the edge, you can't just show up on game day and do it. You know what I'm saying? So I think he's just an intentional person. The details, when you talk about the people that are detail oriented, they center themselves around intention, because you think about it, is him being a head coach, without being intentional with his time, he doesn't get to tap into, the personal level that he has with each individual person he comes in contact with, which makes him the coach that he is, meeting people where they are, all the things that we've been talking about. Everyone that comes in contact with him, they say, man, having a conversation with him is like, he's like, I'm the only person in the room.
You said
right?
that when
And so these types of things is all about like the intentionality of the experience. He's going up into the press box before a game. He wants to walk, like there's coaches that walk the grass before a game, right? To feel it, to touch it, to be there in the experience. Like the intentionality of not just letting these opportunities go by without, because think about it. he's getting closer to what the players are going to be experiencing by doing all this. So like being in their shoes as much as possible, feeling what they're feeling, understanding kind of what they're seeing when it's third quarter and we might be down by 10, like that feeling of knowing what they're experiencing and being able to see things from a bird's eye view before a game and having this like this aha moment. You know what I'm saying? Like, who knows? Like, just I love the intentionality of not missing an opportunity and just maximizing everything.
It reminds me of like my college days when I had this really challenging calculus class, and I was like really struggling with it. I'm terrible at advanced math. You're talking about basic math. I'm like great at it. I'm good with football stats.
Same.
Get the advanced stuff. I'm like, how do you put this formula on the board? You say this plus this equals this, and then you just say, and I ask you how, and you're just like, because it just does. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Or some coaches around the league, that's how they teach things. They're like, well, if you do this, it's just going to make you better. And there's got to be that reasoning behind it of how did you get to this is going to make you better. Canales shows his work. He explains it, and that's how you get the results that you're going to get with these guys' development.
Let me ask both of you guys, because you both played more organized sports than I did. Did you ever play for a coach that was close to your age?
No, not really.
Or like a younger coach?
Most of the only one that I had was a positional coach, and not going to say names, but like it wasn't the greatest coach out there. But yeah, I mean, most of my coaches were older.
I'm just curious how that applies to like with this and veterans and Coach Canales, because Canales is what, I don't know, early 40s, early 40s.
I think we're going through a time of just a transition, right? There's a shift happening where generations, like our generation, we were used to the adult being someone of stature, right? Experience, wisdom, but because that's what we grew up in, like structure in the sense of, why can't I do that? Because I said no, and no means no. Right? I don't need to explain nothing to you. I don't need to explain nothing to you. But nor was there a lot of resources for us to even think to ourselves, oh, the answer is I can find out for myself. And so now we're in this day and age where we can YouTube, Google, do all these things to find out information. And so we know different experiences. Like, oh, wait a minute. You can't just talk to me like that. Because I've seen other coaches on YouTube talk to their coaches differently. So why are you talking to me this way? So like there's this whole like, you know, what's the word? Can of worms.
Like a shift. There's a shift going on.
People are experiencing and coming to realize that like the self-awareness, right? Like these kids have way more self-awareness than we did growing up because they have way more resources to pick up things, to understand what it is that they do and don't like. Now you have the guys coming from college saying, I got to choose where I wanted to go to college 4 times. So like, you're not going to tell me, you're not going to sit up here and tell me that I have to do this. You're not going to sit up here and tell me that we're going to do 2-a-days.
See,
there's no such thing as that.
Y'all gonna make me sound like the old man on the porch screaming at the clouds here, because I'm like, I think they know too much. I think they know too much. That's the problem. Like, they think they know everything.
And that's why these younger coaches tend to have success earlier in their tenures, because these players are so curious as to why are we doing these drills? Why are we doing this meeting? Why are we doing it this way? Where before it was just like, we're just going to go with it. And now you're almost kind of challenging the staff. And sometimes, I don't know this from experience, but I'm assuming that sometimes by challenging the staff, say, why do we do it this way? They may be like, you know what? Maybe we should do it a different way.
It's accountability. Because one of the things too, I actually just realized, like, part of my like off-season workouts, I would go somewhere to, if I'm in California working out, if I'm in Miami working out, Arizona working out, whoever is training me, I always question them. Every single thing that we did, I'm like, why are we doing this? I want to know why. Tell me why. And now neurologically, I can get behind this. And if you are here in your workout, then you'll be a beast in your workout.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. That totally.
And so when you are able to connect the dots mentally to the physical, that's what makes perfect sense in the world, right? I just said that out loud, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So when a kid, so when you have guys nowadays, that's like the regular of questioning, getting the answer. Now you're building trust, right? And so once you trust the coach, it's sky's the limit from that point. Now you're playing for the coach in a different demeanor. Now you're learning how to play for other guys because you know that.
Now you become like
an actual team.
Yeah, like he's a teammate now. And now you're at the point of the season where it's like you've gone through all the process, you've uploaded all this stuff, you've hit each other as much times as you can. Now it's just a matter of winning or losing. And if you win, it reinforces everything that you just went through over the past couple of months, this new regime, everything, as like, yo, this is right. This makes sense. This works. Look at it. We just came away with a victory. How many times did that happen last year? So I'm looking forward to seeing how they react to it, because it did feel like in the preseason, especially game 3, when we got the chance to see the actual offense out there, it just looks different. It just looks completely different than last year. So I'm really excited to see that against the Saints team where we've said we kind of feel like they're starting to age out a little bit. They've been kicking that salary cap can down the road for it feels like a decade. And it feels like maybe it's starting to catch up a little bit with age and everything. Let's just stay on the 3 keys to victory. Stu's was pass rush. Schuyler, what's your key to a Panther victory on Sunday?
It's preventing the pass rush. So I know it's kind of cliche. Look, I know we can get into the cornerback situation and off the outside linebacker spot. We could talk all the live long day about those 2 things. But last year, what was the biggest problem? The offensive line. And we haven't seen more than 1 drive out of the starters yet. That's a group that has been kind of mixed and matched all offseason, all preseason. Guys been injured, bumped up. Damian Lewis had a shoulder thing there for a while. Robert Hunt was kind of in and out for like a day. Corbett's, in there for the first time at center. So you just don't know what it's going to look like in week 1 when you're actually having to go out there for every single drive. And to me, if I'm Dan Morgan, if I'm Dave Canales, it's the position unit I'm most excited about, but I'm also the most worried about, because I just spent a boatload of money bringing in 2 guys in Lewis and Hunt, and they better sure as hell work out, because if not, you're in deep, you know what. So I think there's some good and bad there, but I think they're probably just excited to see what they can do from a run game perspective, from a pass protection perspective, and kind of build off of that. This, again, it's not going to be a finish or a perfect product week 1. They're going to look much better by week 4, 5, 6, and 7 than they are right now. But this gives you the starting point. Where are you going to be at with this group? Because we have no idea. You're just hoping that it's light years better than what it was at week 17 last year when they were still struggling. So to me, it starts and ends with the protection, because that was the number 1 issue last year. And if it's still an issue, even though you paid $154 million to 2 guys, then I don't know. I don't know what you're going to do then.
I think some of that's going to get corrected by just what Dave Canales has done with Bryce Young in terms of getting the ball out quicker. So, getting the ball out quicker is going to make any O-line look much, much better. Whereas last year, he was kind of holding the ball, waiting for guys to get open, and it was putting the O-line in spots where, real talk, you can go back and watch some of the highlights of some of those games from last year, and it looks like sometimes the O-line they don't know where Bryce is, like behind them. Like, they don't know if he went all the way back, if he stepped up, if he ran out bootleg. They don't know where he's at. So a lot of times they're getting pushed into him because he still has the ball. That preseason game 3, it felt like the ball's going to really get out in less than 3 seconds. And it was a weird feeling to see Bryce throwing to receivers for the Panthers that were open. Like, they were literally standing there wide open, waiting on the ball. Like, there's no one around. Like, there was one to Adam Thielen, and it was like no one around him. I'm like, he's in the middle of the field. Like,
one thing about Bryce, and I don't know if you guys picked up on it or anything, but it felt like he was going through his reads much quicker than he was a year ago. And sometimes you got to be careful. You don't want to move off too quickly off a guy, because if something may happen, he may be open. But it felt like last year there was times where he wasn't staring down a receiver, but he was going too long throughout his progressions to where he just ran out of time.
Almost like he was seeing what was in front of him, but it was like in Spanish, like, and he don't speak Spanish, so it's like I kind of know some of the words, but I don't know how to actually fluently do this. This year, he picked up one of those. What is it? The Rosetta Stone or whatever teaches you how to speak a different language in like a week and a half.
Me not speak English. Oh, wait, I speak English.
He just said we're going to Spain. Okay, I can agree with that. For me, so Stu had pass rush. We got to have a pass rush coming from somewhere. O-line from Schuyler, which I think we all are in agreement of. I'm going to go with the whole. We were already on the run the ball, stop the run mantra, and we've been there on Bleav in Panthers. It's one of our things. I'm going to go for the run side. For the Panthers, we got to get over 100 yards rushing in this football game, and we need to do it in maybe more than that, maybe 150.